Active knowledge making is certainly a goal for all educators. And I think we all know and understand very clearly that producing knowledge, of course, is much more powerful than only consuming it. And this is in all domains. And being a producer brings different kinds of rewards than simply being a consumer. And this is particularly in learning. So to continue with the theme of the difference that digital ecologies are making, what is it that the digital ecologies allow us or afford us in terms of being producers of knowledge? Certainly when you're in the cloud space or working online, you are required to be, the tools and the framework itself requires a much more active engagement with the areas that you're interested in, searching, looking up, engaging, exchanging information, whether it's on a blog or in an email or even in any kind of way. You're required not just to take something in, but there's the affordance of connecting, and it is something that we all take up. It also allows, in this space, when we're working within the digital ecology space, that anyone who's in that space can bring something to the learning experience, bring something to the table, as we say. No one is left out. The possibility of doing that is there for you, at the same time without interrupting or annoying anybody else. You can be an investigator, a designer, a creator, simultaneously as everybody else in that group that you might want to call a class, or in that group that has an affinity around whatever they're engaging with in the digital ecologies. And this can happen all the time, and it's not, you can choose to engage continuously and in a holistic kind of way, and produce as a consequence shared understandings in the same period without waiting your turn, so to speak, in making a contribution to the knowledge that is being produced. Now, this makes a powerful difference to learners in terms of their sense of agency. They can choose to engage, they can choose the extent of the engagement in much more significant ways than in an ordered classroom that requires very particular ways of turn-taking and participating when you put your hand up or when you're asked a question. So it does create the conditions not only of declaring what you've known or the answer that the teacher wants, but the possibility of contributing and building different kinds of answers and engaging with others around the strength and validity of those answers, and to produce what's genuinely useful for you in terms of the kind of interaction that you want to contribute.
The second of our 7 affordances I call active meaning making. So let me characterise the textbook as opposed to active meaning making. So let's say we're a group of kids and we're in the classroom, and the teacher has got us to do something on volcanoes. I'm taking a simple, somewhat jokey example to explain what I'm talking about. And what the teacher says is, okay, turn to chapter 7. Chapter 7 is about volcanoes, and read chapter 7, and it lays out little bit by little bit, all the key concepts, give some examples, and then, by the way, at the end of the term, we're going to do a volcanoes test to see what you've remembered. So this positions the student really as a knowledge consumer, which is they're being told about volcanoes and they're going to have to remember it. So that's the mode of the classical textbook and a classic curriculum kind of move. All right, active knowledge making, this is the difference. We say to the students, okay, you're going to do a volcanoes project and you're going to write a report about what volcanoes are. It might be a geographical report, which is thinking about landforms and features, physical geography, or it might be a science report where we're talking about the Earth's crust and the way in which these landforms are created from a geological point of view. So here we've got a kind of a different set of a setup where we're positioning the student to develop knowledge, find knowledge about volcanoes. Now, in fact, in the conventional classroom, the problem was you needed the book about volcanoes because you could just afford this textbook, because it also had a section about rivers and a section about whatever else the textbook was doing, and this was an object which was affordable and which synthesised the world, because the rest of the world from the classroom the rest of the world of knowledge was not that accessible. But here we are today, where if the kids are online on the web, they can look up any number of sources. There's a pile of information on the web about volcanoes, and a pile of information just immediately accessible. So no longer do we have to boil the world down into this little chapter 7 on volcanoes, because there's this rich amount of material. There are videos of volcanoes, but also what there's a lot of descriptions of specific volcanoes. So, I come from Australia, and there the volcanoes, a lot of the ancient volcanoes, there are now active volcanoes, were things that oozed along the ground and left lava tubes. They didn't leave a cone. Whereas in a lot of parts of the world, there are these classical conical formed volcanoes, which are quite different, although they're still volcanoes. And I read just recently that they've discovered the biggest volcano of all time under the sea off Japan, very, very deep under the sea, and the lava goes for hundreds of miles. It's just a phenomenally huge thing. So, okay, now we have our students in our class. In fact, I might write about Australian volcanoes because that's where I'm from, and you might write about a volcano in South America, and someone else might have heard about this volcano under the sea, under the Pacific Ocean, and they might write about that. And the general criteria for writing a good geography report or writing a good scientific report about a geological phenomenon, right? The students might have that, but then what they do is they write chapter 7. Instead of being given chapter 7 to read, they write chapter 7. So this is what we mean by active knowledge making, and we think that these kinds of ubiquitous learning environments, these kinds of e-learning environments actually make this really possible in a way that wasn't practical before in the traditional classroom. Now, we might call this, for me, this is a shift from learning as content transmission, okay? So you've got content transmission, and we have knowledge and where the student is positioned as a knowledge consumer. The content is transmitted to them, they consume the knowledge. To what I would call an environment where learners are knowledge producers, and I would call this participatory learning. You're actually participating in the process of knowledge production.